Tonight, another frustrating period for the public university system as ASUU extends strike by 3 months. Students of the universities lament the situation, say it's been miserable staying at home. Labour Minister Dr. Ngige says government has not given up on negotiation, cautions against prolonged ASUU strike. Serving overseer of the Citadel Global Community Church of Nigeria, Pastor Tunde Bakare, declares to run for president. Also today, separate groups pick up forms for the Senate president, the governor of Cross River State and Minister of State for Petroleum. And former President Goodluck Jonathan may be taking a shot again at presidency as a coalition of northern groups purchase for him the presidential nomination and expression of interest form on the platform of the APC.
On business news tonight, Securities and Exchange Commission proposes new guidelines to make operations in the Nigerian capital market become fully digital.
On sports news tonight, despite trailing Manchester City by 3 points with 3 games to go, Jurgen Klopp insists Liverpool will not stop believing they can win the Premier League title.
And from Abuja, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo tells heads of parliament across Africa that it is time to take steps to end the continent's economic challenges brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic.
And in international news from London, Russia's President Vladimir Putin accuses the West of preparing to invade Russia as he and his troops mark Victory Day.
The Academic Staff Union of Universities will not be going back to the lecture rooms anytime soon, as the leadership of the union says it is rolling over its strike by extending it for another 3 months. That's coming after what it calls an emergency meeting, which took place at the Comrade Felix Iyai National Secretariat at the University of Abuja. The meeting was called to review its warning strike declared March 14, and the union says no progress has been made on the renegotiation of the 2009 federal government ASUU agreement. But the Minister of Labour and Productivity, Dr. Ngige, today cautioned that the action of the university lecturers may weaken the public university system.
February 14, 2020 was a bad Valentine's Day for students in government-owned universities, as lecturers announced a 4-week warning strike, disrupting academic activities across the country. The 4-week strike was extended by 8 weeks, as contained in a statement by the ASUU leadership on March 14, 2022. The lecturers are protesting unpaid earned allowances, university revitalization funding, as well as the operationalization of the University Transparency and Accountability System, UTAS, which is a payment platform designed by the lecturers.
That will waste too much time.
At the resumption of negotiations with the government in March, the ASUU leadership told the federal government that they wanted action and not promises.
Nigerians want to see action. The students want to see action. My members want to see action. I also believe the general public want to see action.
Although the Labour Minister had assured the striking lecturers of the government's determination to end the strike, the universities remained shut almost 3 months after. All hopes of reopening the universities were again dashed as ASUU extended the strike for another 12 weeks. At this news conference on the National Productivity Day in Abuja, the Minister of Labour and Employment said the government had not given up on its reconciliation efforts.
The work is ongoing. Professor Nimibrig have given an interim report to the Ministry of Education. I requested for certain things to assist him do his work. From my understanding, the Ministry of Education is addressing the request from Professor Nimi Briggs.
ASUU embarked on one of its longest strikes in 2020, crippling academic activities for a whole session. Many fear a repeat in terms of the longevity of that industrial action and hope that the ongoing impasse will be resolved quickly to prevent a situation where students will again lose another academic year.
Sitting at home for another 12 weeks will certainly increase the misery of the Nigerian students, and they do not seem prepared for such as they threaten to disrupt all activities, including the forthcoming general elections. The students who held separate protests in Benin City and in Lagos say no education, no election.
These students, chanting solidarity songs at the entrance of Channel's television headquarters, are from the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. Following the latest announcement by ASUU to extend its ongoing strike, they are calling on the federal government to urgently address the incessant closure of schools.
We have plans. We are the future of this country. We shouldn't be treated this way. And can they do this to their children? Because they are not in this country. We are suffering from the devastation that they've committed and everything that is going backward in this country. So we are the receiving end.
They warn that failure of the federal government to address these issues raised by ASUU will lead to mass protests across the country.
We cannot continue like this, and that's why we've deemed it fit to come out to register our grievances against the federal government. And this is serving as a warning to them that if, as a matter of fact, they cannot attend to the ASUU strike, we are going to come out in mass and we shut down every political activities in the country because we are tired.
The same message is coming from the University of Lagos. Here, the ASUU chairman of the institution's chapter says 3 months of staying at home is already a major setback, and this extension will only make things worse for their education.
I really feel sad because these issues have remained the same in the last 13 years.
In Edo State, students are also protesting against the ongoing ASUU strike, barricading a section of the road near Benin Airport. They also took their demands to the State Secretariat of the Nigeria Union of Journalists Press Center, where the state chairman of the union echoed their appeal for a resolution to be reached so that the students can return to school.
We have the opinion very strongly that the federal government of Nigeria and the academic staff union of universities in Nigeria should immediately return back to the negotiation table. Yes! And resolve the impasse. We want our young ones to return to the classroom. Yes!
The students maintain that no education means no election, a threat they expect the federal government to take as seriously as the situation, they say, has become unbearable.
Joining us on the News at 10 now to discuss the ongoing strike by ASUU is the union's president, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke. He joins us from Umuahia, the Abia State capital. Professor, thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
And ASUU has had 16 strike actions in 23 years, and yet another extension to the union's current industrial action. What does ASUU really want?
Well, you see, I want to start by saying that strike is a symptom of a problem. That is it. We should not be counting the number of days. It's a symptom of a problem, and the problem is government not funding education. Any day the government starts funding education and treating the education with priority as they give to fuel subsidy, as they give to subsidizing those private people who bought NEPA and what have you, the strike will stop. It's a symptom of a problem. We should not be looking at the symptom. Let's look at the problem. We expect Nigeria to be talking about the problem. Are we funding education well? Nigeria is the only country in the world that gives 5.4% of the budget to education. Does it happen anywhere in the world? So we should look at the issue, the problem. The government should look at the problem and not look at the symptoms.
The federal government has complained sometimes about the paucity of funds. So how much can be released now that would help the lecturers get back to the classroom, at least to appease the union for now, so that, students can get back to learning?
You see, thank you very much. When I hear paucity of funds, it sounds funny. A country that can spend 4 trillion naira on subsidization of fuel, why we still have fuel queue in Abuja all over the country. A country that can spend billions of naira to subsidize the electricity company that have been sold to private company. And you say you don't have money to fund education. In the country that want to develop in the world, the most important issue you look at is education. It's education. That's where you have the solution to your problems. Do we have to be importing fuel? The answer is no. Challenge our university today in 1 year or 2 years, we will not need to import fuel to this country. We'll be even exporting fuel. But they don't want to challenge the academics. They don't want to fund the system. They just want to go outside and get things and bring back to the country. And pay heavily for it and spend our resources to pay for them. Meanwhile, all their children are schooling abroad. That is the problem. Any day they start looking at this system as a country, and they will start seeing Nigeria running this country, and not people who have their family abroad coming here to run this country will have improvement in the system. Education is #1 priority in any country that want to develop.
Well, I know that many ASUU members are parents, so the whole of Nigeria actually sympathizes, with, the plight of of the union itself. But have you considered how much of an impact this would have, not just on the students, but also the parents? By extension, you've just extended the strike action by another few weeks.
Well, let's start that. I have more than 6 children in school, 2 of them biological, and up to 4 who are not biological that are sponsored, who are not my children. So we're also paying the price. But more importantly, to intercede to stop this strike as quickly as possible, what were they doing? The Labour Minister first thing he did was to go and stop our salary. Thinking that when he stops salary of academics, the egghead, the intellectual of this country, they will run back to work. It's so sad. That is the first thing he did. He was able to do that to stop salary of the workers. There are some people who have been on strike since October last year. He didn't stop their salary. And even stopping the academic salary, he wanted to divide the unions on campus. We have 4 unions. He paid 2 and left 2. Thinking that would divide us. We are united and we'll fight this struggle to the end, no matter what the Minister of Labour decides to do by stopping salary or some set of people. So what I'm saying that we are all paying the price. Every one of us is paying the price. With what I earn, I cannot put my children in a public primary school, secondary school, or university. So we are all paying the price. My children are paying the price. Those are sponsors are paying the price. But I know those who are there are not paying the price. Let me give you an example. The airline operator said they will stop flying today. Is it not? It didn't take 24
they've called that off.
For the Senate to intercede. Yeah, what I'm saying, it didn't take 24 hours for the Senate or the federal president to intercede. And even invited the governor of Central Bank, who sent everybody and they chased the person out. Why would that Senate also intercede on education and invite the Central Bank governor to say how they can fund the issue? Because they fly, they need it. They have to intercede quickly and call the Central Bank governor. It's so sad that we don't think about Nigerian children. We don't think about the young boy and girls who are roaming the street, who are creating problems, if we don't take care of them, will become problem in this country. I think we should change our trajectory.
Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, thank you so much for speaking with us on the News at 10. We do hope the government is listening. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
In part 2, after the break, a coalition of northern groups pick form for former President Goodluck Jonathan as Pastor Tunde Bakare declares his intentions as well. Plus, Senate President and Governor of Cross River State have their forms picked by proxy. We'll have more on this after the break. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us watching the News at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos, a reminder of our top stories. ASUU extends strike by 3 months. Students of universities lament the situation. Labour Minister Dr. Chris Ngige says government willing to continue negotiation. Serving overseer of the Citadel Global Community Church of Nigeria, Pastor Tunde Bakare, declares also today separate groups pick forms for the Senate President and the Governor of Cross River State for presidency. And Northern Coalition purchased APC presidential form for President Goodluck Jonathan. We could continue with education as the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TED Fund for short, is announcing over 1.4 billion naira as its 2022 interventions for disbursement to benefiting universities, polytechnics and colleges of education across the country. The Executive Secretary of the TED Fund, Mr. Sonny Echono, stated this at a meeting with heads of tertiary institutions in Abuja. He, however, raises serious concerns about several non-performing projects in 7 institutions, describing the situation as disturbing. Meanwhile, the serving overseer of the Citadel Global Community Church Nigeria, Pastor Tunde Bakare, today officially declared his intention to contest for the office of the President of Nigeria in the 2023 elections. Anchoring his vision on peace, progress, prosperity and possibilities, he promises to tackle insecurity, support the military, reform the police to be intelligence-driven and increase power generation to 100,000 megawatts in 7 years.
Days after obtaining the expression of interest and nomination forms of the All Progressives Congress, the serving overseer of the Citadel Global Community Church Nigeria, Pastor Tunde Bakare, is here to formally declare his intention to contest for the position of the President of Nigeria in the forthcoming elections. He is accompanied by his wife as guests from various backgrounds, including market women, converge on the Yaradua Center in Abuja for the event, which begins with this young orator who paints a picture of the current situation in the country as she expresses her dream of a better Nigeria.
He's the driving force for the success of the land. His cloak is not tainted with corruption, tribalism, or nepotism.
Let's rise to our feet.
To make his declaration, Pastor Tunde Bakare is introduced by his wife, Mrs. Olaide Bakare.
Please rise with me again as I bring PTB to the stage.
With that, he gets on the stage.
That I'm running for the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The 4 cardinal objectives of his aspiration are peace, progress, prosperity and possibilities, as he explains how he intends to tackle the security challenges in the country and build back the economy.
We will rebuild our national security architecture to adequately identify, anticipate and address our security threats. We will build a 10-lane, 3,000-kilometer north-south superhighway which will be systematically linked to regional roads and subways feeding each geo-economic zone. We will execute a decentralized, private sector-driven electricity reform agenda that will see the generation of up to 100,000 megawatts of on-grid and off-grid electricity by 2030 as part of the Nigerian Geo-Economic Development Plan.
Pastor Tunde Bakare was the running mate to President Muhammadu Buhari during the 2011 elections under the Congress for Progressive Change, CPC. At this time, he hopes to get the ticket of the APC to contest for the #1 position in the country.
The only hope that
Still talking politics after a month of speculation, it appears former President Goodluck Jonathan may be joining the race to contest for office of the President of Nigeria as a coalition of northern groups today purchased the expression of interest and nomination forms for the former president. Earlier, 2 separate groups also picked the APC expression of interest and nomination forms for the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, the Governor of Cross River State, Professor Ben Ayade, and Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timipriye Silva. Our correspondent, Dele Omoyeni, reports.
The deadline for the purchase of presidential nomination forms is in a couple of hours, and aspirants or their supporters are obtaining these forms to beat the deadline. A coalition of northern groups are here to purchase the presidential nomination and expression of interest forms for former President Goodluck Jonathan this evening in Abuja. The group gives reasons why the former president must run in 2023.
Found it expedient, who was magnanimous enough to remember some of the most vulnerable communities in this country, the Almajiri community. He brought a comprehensive policy of reformation and integration of Almajiri into the mainstream educational system in Nigeria.
Another group under the umbrella of National Stability Project also purchased the presidential nomination form for Senate President Ahmed Lawan and presented it to him in Abuja. The group believes that he is the best candidate to lead Nigeria.
I'm going to respect my party and listen to the leaders of this party, because that is our platform in the first place. But I will spare no moment going from door to door to ensure that I get the votes when the National Convention to elect the presidential candidate of our party will hold.
Yet another group purchased the presidential nomination for the governor of Cross River State, Ben Ayade. Speaking to journalists after he was presented with the forms, he says he has delivered exceptional governance for the people of Cross River State and therefore is qualified to lead the country.
Essentially speaking, therefore, is that if power by the nomenclature of democracy supposes that people should have fair and equal access, one will imagine that by the extension and extrapolation of that definition, power should go to the southern part of Nigeria, having done 8 years this way. And I think that the sensitivity of this is such that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is conscious. I'm very aware of it.
The governor of Nasarawa State also purchases the forms for his second term.
The more people that are showing interest to buy our form is the most expensive form. So, and yet you are saying that so many people are showing, which means we are the party to beat. We are the party of excitement. We are the party of attraction. And that is the reason why you are seeing that.
It is, however, not clear if former President Goodluck Jonathan is now a member of the APC. Neither has the APC revealed if it will be zoning its presidential ticket to the south. Dele Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
In the meantime, another group that calls itself the Coalition of Northern Groups CNG is associating itself from the group that purchased forms for former President Goodluck Jonathan, explaining they have nothing to do with it. According to them, they are addressed as the Coalition of Northern Groups and not a Coalition of Northern Groups. In their statement signed by their spokesperson Abdulaziz Sulaiman, they acknowledge that there is a proliferation of coalitions across the north and categorically state that their group is not involved in partisanship, much less picking a particular candidate and picking a form for him. Over the weekend, CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele said he was waiting on God to confirm his presidential bid, but by seeking judicial protection from the Federal High Court Abuja on his presidential ambition, it appears he's decided not to wait any longer. A suit filed at the court praying for a declaration that he is not bound to resign as CBN governor to participate in the selection of a presidential candidate on the platform of the APC. A court today, however, put on hold the CBN governor's request and then ordered INEC and the Attorney General of the Federation to appear before it on May 12.
Lawyers and members of the public are here in this courtroom for the hearing of a suit filed by the Central Bank Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, challenging his right to contest the position of Nigeria's president in the 2023 election. Arguing an ex parte motion filed because of the urgency of the matter, counsel to the CBN Governor, Michael Zekome, says his client, who is the current CBN Governor, is interested in running for the office of the President of the country, but is in a dilemma on account of if he can run without resigning as the governor of the Apex Bank. Mr. Ozekome argues that Section 82, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act has been voided by a federal high court in Umuahia and that the matter is on appeal at the moment. He also praised the court for an order of interim injunction stopping further action on the matter.
Our argument in this court is that even that Section 84, subsection 12, even if it was not struck down, or even if the judgment of Justice Anyadike is not affirmed by the Court of Appeal, it does not apply to Emefiele as governor of Central Bank. Who is he? He's a public officer. What provisions govern public officers? Section 318 of the Constitution defines who a public officer is. a statutory corporation that is government-owned, like the CBN. It's a public office. So a person occupying it is a public officer. Can it therefore be subjected to Section 84, Subsection 12 of the Electoral Act, which names political appointees as ineligible to contest? We are saying it's not a political appointee.
The CBN governor had taken the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) and the Attorney General of the Federation before a federal high court in Abuja, seeking enforcement of his right to contest the 2023 presidential election without resigning from his current position.
Meanwhile, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Ebun Olu Adegboruwa, has faulted the presidential ambition of Mr. Godwin Emefiele, describing it as a comedy. Mr. Adegboruwa says Mr. Emefiele, being an employee of the CBN, that any case to determine Emefiele's status or eligibility should be filed at the National Industrial Court and not at the Federal High Court. He argues that as long as Mr. Emefiele earns salary from the central bank, he should not dream of contesting an election while still holding on to his office, noting that it is an insult to the collective psyche of the people. Still ahead on the news at 10, House of Representatives meets with aviation stakeholders in Abuja. We'll be back with that story. Do join us again.
How are you? How's everybody? How are you?
More on the road to 2023 in furtherance of his consultation with critical stakeholders towards his presidential aspiration. Former President of the Senate, Dr. Bukola Saraki, was in consultation with former President Olusegun Obasanjo in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital. At a closed-doors meeting, which lasted about an hour, the People's Democratic Party's presidential hopeful also engaged the party's delegates to the presidential primary in Abuja, the nation's capital, at the month end. The former president of the Senate rated himself as the best among the aspirants jostling for the exalted seat, saying that Nigeria needs a purposeful and serious president who can take tough decisions at critical periods of our national development.
The chairman of my advocacy group has come before. This is my second time counting their visit to be here. To be here to formally inform you, seek your support and your blessing. That it is my intention to serve this country with your support, God's willing, as the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 2023.
Let's get out of the stories now from our Abuja studio. Here's Linda Kigbe. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Amarachi. Away from politics to governance issues, lawmakers need to come up with pragmatic solutions to the economic woes of the continent caused by the disruption of COVID-19 pandemic. That's the challenge the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, posed to the continent's lawmakers at the first conference of speakers and heads of African parliaments holding in Abuja. Our State House correspondent Kayla Megwa reports.
The Congress Hall of Transcorp Hilton Abuja plays host to speakers and heads of parliament of 181 parliaments across Africa. They are here for the next 2 days to address a common challenge: the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on African economies and how parliamentary leadership can enhance the post-COVID economic recovery. Its convener and chair, the Speaker of the Nigerian House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, believes conferences such as this one are important, as African nations must work together to deliver the dividends of democracy to the African people.
As leaders in this new world, there is no decision more consequential than investing in Africa's young people, protecting them, ensuring their health and well-being, and providing them with a solid education upon which to build their future.
Goodwill messages at the conference underscore the sheer magnitude of Africa's economic regression because of the pandemic. With 11.5 million COVID-19 infections across the continent, 250,000 people have died from the disease. the pandemic did more than take lives. The continent registered a minus 1.5% decline in economic growth. 26 million people are now below the poverty line, and 40 million jobs were lost. For the head of the African Development Bank, whatever recovery plans the parliamentarians enforce must have visible impact on the quality of the lives of all Africans.
The recovery must create jobs and recover jobs that have been lost. The recovery must focus on the micro, the small and medium-sized businesses, most of whom were closed down from this pandemic.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, ranks the socio-economic cost of the pandemic on Africa as very high, restating the need for debt cancellation for all African countries, proper investments in health, agriculture and information technology, and the need for better collaborations.
We must build strong collaborative partnerships across the aisles in our parliaments, with our judiciaries, with the executive, with the private sector, and with civil society. And if we learned anything at all from COVID-19 and its aftermath, it is that no nation, no institution, no group, no individual can succeed alone.
Africa's future is not set in stone. Its future will be determined by the actions or inactions of its leaders and people, and that's a resounding message at this particular conference. The Vice President there speaking unequivocally to all of the speakers and heads of parliaments in Africa to not just rehash the problems COVID has caused the economies of African countries, but to actually come up with pragmatic solutions, and he's hoping that that is done during this conference. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
Families of kidnapped victims of the Abuja-Kaduna bound train are accusing the management of the Nigeria Railway Corporation and the Ministry of Transportation of playing politics with the lives of those abducted. According to them, the NRC has yet to contact any of the relatives of the kidnapped victims, nor establish any situation room 1 week after the president gave the directive to expedite the release of the remaining captives. The families insist that train services should not resume until the successful rescue of those kidnapped. Our correspondent Gloria Umezuki reports.
Growing weary and anxious, families of the abducted passengers of the AK-9 Abuja-Kaduna train bomb attack converge once again in Abuja, 42 days after their loved ones were captured by terrorists on a route considered before now as one of the safest.
Others have their wives, mothers, sisters, brothers, uncles and aunts held down in the bush. This hostage-taking has drastically disrupted the living conditions of affected families.
We rot. Desperate for answers, Mrs. Idayat Yusuf, who speaks on behalf of the families, is aggrieved with the response so far from the Nigeria Railway Corporation, as well as the Ministry of Transport. Following a presidential directive that the NRC should establish a situation room, the corporation released a statement some days ago stating 2 numbers through which they can be contacted for help.
To our surprise, we are saying that there's a number that we should contact if we've lost. They actually have our numbers. They know how to reach out to us if they actually have a debt. I think they're just playing politics with the life of those that are abducted from the Ministry of Transportation and the NRC.
The statement signed by the Director of Operations at the corporation, Mr. Ni Ali, on behalf of the Managing Director, Mr. Fidet Okiria, also indicated that train services would soon resume operations.
If you pick passenger from Abuja to Kaduna to drop them and they are not back and they are not in their comfort zone, you have not dropped them because they have not dropped the passengers yet. How do you not intend to carry another passengers? That is our question. You understand? That is our question. All the other passengers that were carried should be dropped first.
Every shred of hope in a situation that seems for her to be gradually slipping into oblivion.
Nigerians have moved on. Only the immediate families, only the families of these victims are talking about this thing now. The people in government are talking about politics.
The families, now determined to negotiate with the bandits, are hoping for expedited action on the rescue efforts. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
The leadership of the House of Representatives appears to have resolved the issues which led the Airline Operators Association of Nigeria to threaten to shut down flight operations across the country. At a meeting that lasted over 3 hours at the National Assembly, the House leadership, led by Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila, secured the commitment of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) to make available 6 million litres of Jet A1 aviation fuel to the aviation fuel marketers in the interim. As part of the resolutions, it was agreed that as a long-term solution, the airline operators must commence as soon as possible the process of securing a license for the importation of aviation fuel to avoid suspicion over the landing cost of the product and other associated logistic issues. Meanwhile, the representative of the governor of the CBN was asked to excuse himself from the meeting by the speaker, who emphasized that the importance and sensitivity of the meeting required the presence of the CBN governor. The CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, who eventually walked into the meeting about 15 minutes later, gave reasons why he had to be represented before his eventual arrival. The NNPC GMD, Mele Kyari, on his part, assured that the 3-month supply of Jet A1 will be made available, but emphasized that aviation fuel cannot be subsidized as requested by the airline operators. Neither can the price of the product be guaranteed because it is globally market-driven. And that's all from Abuja. Now to Anne for business news.
Thank you, Linda. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Securities and Exchange Commission is proposing new framework that will make Nigeria's capital market become fully digital for investors. According to the Commission, the new regulatory framework undergoing review seeks to mandate compulsory adoption of information and communication technology, especially web-based applications and devices for virtually capital market transactions. The new rules mandate all capital market operators to have well-secured and functional website as well as functional electronic mailing system, either hosted privately or using a cloud service provider with domain name owned and registered by the capital market operator. Let's head to the market now, where more than 500 billion naira, that's the amount gained by investors in the local market at the close of trade today. Benchmark performance and indicators climbed nearly 2%, closer to the 52,000 level. Will Ibong has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. The NGX is definitely in a world of its own. So long, the all-share index up almost 2%, stocks roaring higher and rallying for the 3rd straight week has propelled the ASI to cross 51,000 points and approaching the 52,000 level. Stocks are simply on fire. Over 500 billion naira added to the market value. Seplat, PZ Cousins, Unilever, Nigerian Breweries, Zenith Bank were among the major contributors in today's positive performance. Although the banking index was a bit of a laggard, most of the big names underperformed except for Zenith Bank. However, the consumer goods index had bellwether PZ Cousins up 9.52%, Flour Mills up 4.23%, and Nigerian Breweries up 10% to thank for the boost in that counter. And Nigerian Breweries went on to top the gainers chart. Is the rally over for Guinness? Because we see a bit of a pullback with the stock, which lost 10 kobo off its share price in today's session. Overall, it's a mega play for the NGX and for investors. Now, is this the new power put for the markets? Tomorrow is another trading day. Let's see if this rally has legs. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Willie Bong. Back to you.
And that's business news for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Amarachi.
Well, still ahead on the news at 10, Securities and Exchange Commission proposes guidelines to make Nigeria's capital market operations fully digital. Just stay with us. Welcome back, and here's Simon Pusa with the day's major stories from around the world.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said troops and volunteers in the eastern Ukrainian Donbass region were fighting for the motherland and its future, and he accused the West of preparing for an invasion of our land. He called NATO an obvious threat to Russia and said the Russian military operation had been necessary and the right decision. He was speaking at the annual parade on Moscow's Red Square, which marks the anniversary of the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany in the Second World War. Russian news agencies said 11,000 troops and 131 armoured vehicles had taken part in the event. He finished his speech to cheers from soldiers in Red Square, cannon fire and the Russian national anthem. Meanwhile, Belarus's president targeted the West's history of international intervention during his Victory Day speech. After thanking and congratulating the crowd who gathered at Victory Square in Minsk following a military parade, Alexander Lukashenko referred to Ukraine, who he said was surviving under the boot of fascist occupiers. He said that without what he called Russia's special military operation, Nazism would raise its head again. Things didn't go so smoothly for Russia's ambassador to Poland, though, who was doused in red paint and pelted with objects as he tried to lay a wreath at a memorial. Sergei Andreev was confronted by protesters as he tried to mark Victory Day at the Soviet military ceremony in the Polish capital. He was blocked from entering the cemetery by a crowd that waved Ukrainian flags in his face and chanted fascist. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, the country's president released a video saying his country would win in its war with Russia and would not cede any territory. President Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukrainians were a free people who had fought to defend their land many times in history and had their own path. He said, on the day of the victory over Nazism, we are fighting for a new victory. The road to do this is difficult, but we have no doubt that we will win. In the UK, the country's Defence Secretary Ben Wallace said that on their Victory Day, Russia was mirroring the fascism and tyranny of 70 years ago in its invasion of Ukraine.
They are showing the same disregard for human lives, national sovereignty and the rules-based international system. The very system, not least the United Nations Charter itself, that we conceived together and for which we fought and were victorious together, in the hope of saving future generations from the scourge of war.
Voting is underway in the Philippines, with millions of people queuing across the islands to choose their next president. The man tipped to win the presidency is Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the son of the nation's former dictator. His main rival is Leni Robredo, a liberal who narrowly beat Mr. Marcos in the 2016 vice presidential race. She was seen queuing with other voters instead of walking to the front like other candidates. Meanwhile, third placed in the polls, Senator and former boxer Manny Pacquiao voted in his hometown. A high turnout is expected of the nation's eligible 67.5 million voters, with many lining up pre-dawn on Monday to cast their votes. Officials say Sri Lanka's Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has resigned amid mass protests at the government's handling of the economic crisis. The move came as the island was placed under curfew after violent clashes between Rajapaksa supporters and the anti-government protesters in Colombo. At least 78 people have been injured in the violence in the capital. There have been protests over soaring prices and power cuts since last month. Somalia's president has formally announced his candidacy for a second term in the presidential elections due on the 15th of May. Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo said he was pursuing a second term in response to what he called the Somali people's call and to continue a path of progress and development. Mr. Farmajo faces stiff competition from several candidates, including 2 former presidents. And finally, the Titan Desert Morocco 2022 endurance mountain biking event got underway in Morocco through stunning desert scenery. The version consists of 6 days of racing, totaling 645 kilometers across 6 stages to reach the Madid region. In the men's event, Francisco Herrero won the sprint against the reigning champion and his teammate. In the women's classification, Ana Ramirez was the first rider to wear the blue jersey. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp believes the Reds can still beat Manchester City to the Premier League title and keep their hopes of a historic quadruple alive. The German has shrugged off suggestions that he should now focus on saving his players' energies for facing Chelsea in the FA Cup final on Saturday and the Champions League final against Real Madrid on May 28th. American boxing legend Floyd Mayweather is hoping to find the next generation of talented boxers in Nigeria. Well, the American, who is in Nigeria to promote the upcoming fight against Don Moore on May the 14th in Dubai, believes the nation has what it takes to produce a boxer that can rule the world. And that's sports news.
Thanks, Tunde. And the main news again, students across the country have lamented a 3-month extension of strike action by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, saying it has been miserable staying at home. That's it on the News at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.